I've returned from 10 days of Vipassana. I was away for about 12 days in total, and just wanted to document my experience. But where to begin? It was definitely one of the most challenging things that I've done in my life. But the course is set that way so that it gives us an opportunity to really experience the practice. So as we arrived, we had to agree to some of the precepts that are laid out so that we can really embody the practice. And for the 10 days we were to abstain from any harming of any being, no killing, no lying, no stealing, no alcohol, and to abstain from sexual misconduct or any type of sex. Those are all quite easy. We were to maintain noble silence for 9 of the days, which was actually so wonderful to not to have to speak or to make any type of eye contact or contact with other people who were there. So the schedule was simple, but took a lot of dedication. So the days were laid out. It was all programmed that way so that we could really dive into the practice. So there were only actually 4 meditations that were required for all of us to be in the meditation hall. The rest of the hours we had the option to meditate in our own rooms, but it was actually, an easy out for those hours. The first day was definitely the hardest. The days basically looked like this. We would get a 4 a.m. wake-up call, and the gong would go off at 4:30 for the first 2-hour meditation. And people were allowed to stay in their rooms or to meditate in the hall. So the first day I did do that, went to the hall, and before Vipassana, I've had some experience with meditation, but it was for short periods and with the help of visualizations, mantras, whatnot, just giving my mind something to do rather than to go off with the thinking mind. So this was a different practice altogether, which I'll explain. But the first 2 hours was excruciating. It was like, I felt like so agitated. I couldn't sit still. I felt like I was naked, tied to a tree with bugs crawling all over me, and to not be able to scratch or move or get them off of me, and that's what it felt like. So that was really hard. So that was from 4:30 to 6:30. Then we had a beautiful breakfast. It was porridge. I had the porridge and prunes every day. That was great. And then we had a break for an hour. So from 7 to 8 we had a break, which I took a nap every single day, and it was the most magnificent sleep, that 1 hour. And after that, from 8 until 9 was a group meditation where we were all required to be in the hall, and then we get a short 5-10 minute break, and then to go to the bathroom. And then basically from 9 until 11, it's another 2 hours. So it's a 3-hour block before lunch. That was really hard, again, on the first day. So the 2-hour block on the first day, I went back to my room thinking, oh, I'm just gonna change it up and see what it's like to meditate in the room. Well, meditation did not happen. Just looking out the window, I started stretching a little bit because I was sore already from the morning sitting, you know, spacing out, doing this, and then I see like tweezers and I'd start plucking my eyebrows. So on the first day, it was very clear to me that if I was to seriously dive into this work, I could not be going back into my room for those hours. So that was a very clear message. So after that block, it was the amazing lunchtime, the peak of my day. And then after lunch, we basically had time until 1 o'clock. And they had a beautiful courtyard. And I just decided if I was going to survive the 10 days, I needed to get away from all aligning myself with the linear world of time, and because looking at the clock is just torture. So I decided, okay, so the gongs go off for each segment of the day. So that was a way to tell what was happening next. And I decided I just need to make a routine and stick to it every day. So after lunch, I did 3 walks around the courtyard, most of the time pumping myself up and telling myself I'm going to get through it, you know, doing visualizations, little self-chat. And we were out in the prairies in Alberta. This was in Youngstown, Alberta, and oh, it was beautiful. It was February, but the sun was out most of the days, and the sunrise and sunsets were just unbelievable, beautiful. So it was actually a really nice time to get away. And after I did the walks, if I had time, most days I went back and I slept again. And the sleeping and the resting was just so great. And then the next block was from 1 until 5. It was a 4-hour block that was broken up to 2 1.5-hour blocks and an hour that was mandatory for everybody to be there. But for the 3 hours, people can choose to do meditation in the room or whatever else that happened in those rooms. But I stayed. I sat in that hall and dealt with myself. So, you know, what I was experiencing was, I mean, the physical sensations of sitting for that long was unbearable at times. Let me just get back to the schedule so you have a little bit more of an idea. So at 5 o'clock we had a very light dinner every day of just fruit and ginger tea. And then we had from until 6 o'clock free, so then I would go back outside and I did 2 laps. No matter how cold it was, I just got outside and walked it off, and it was very helpful on the days that I've had a hard sit. And then back from 6 till 7 for a mandatory group sit, and then from 7 to about 8:15 we watched videos of S.N. Goenka, who brought Vipassana to the West, and thank goodness I liked him immediately. He was like a Indian cherub. Actually, he's from Burma, but just really resonated with his energy, and he's as funny as hell. He told some stories that, you know, we weren't supposed to be speaking, but we couldn't help but laugh because he was so funny. And then after his discourses, we would sit for another 45 minutes. And the 45 minutes was like a breeze after sitting all day. And then it was time to retire. I had a slot to have a shower every day at 9:15, which was great. So I did that. So that is a total of 10 to 11 hours of meditation a day if you sat through all of it. And from day 2, I did it. The technique for the first 3 days, which I didn't know, I thought we were practicing Vipassana, but we were practicing the Anapana breathing. And it was simply to sit and to observe objectively the physical sensations in this limited area, in this triangle. So in the nostrils and above the lip. That is it. To just sit and feel the sensations without controlling your breath. This is very important, that it's just a natural breath. And 3 days of that in each sit. So I was starting to get it. The first day, again, was excruciating. The second day was better. The third day was very challenging. A lot of stuff going on in my head. But I was starting to feel like the tickling on the hairs on my upper lip. And the breath moving into my nostrils. And how my nostrils would flare out when I exhaled out. And just the subtlest things. And I was like, wow, what is this meditation about? This is like, just took so much focus. But the Anapana breath is to focus your mind. And I understood that when we got the next Vipassana meditation. So, wow, the mind and where it goes when sitting still like that was unbearable at times. But the whole idea of Vipassana is to observe objectively. Because the idea that the Buddha, I mean, this is the very technique that the Buddha used to become enlightened. This is the exact technique. And then he taught this to his people, and to liberate them from their miseries. And the idea, if I can put this quickly in a nutshell, is that all of our miseries come from craving, which turns to clinging, which turns to attachment, right? So we're craving happiness. We're craving to want the things that feel good. And when we don't want to lose that feeling when we have all the wonderful things in our lives. But our misery comes when it is taken away from us, or when we fear that it's going to go away. So aversions, we have this like, I don't want to feel, I don't want that, I don't want to feel that, get it away from me, I want to stay in this happy place. And even when you're in the happy place, there's fear that it's going to be taken away. So it's like this cycle of this not truly being at peace, because even when you have all the things that you have, you're scared you're going to lose it, and then the misery comes from that. Or you have it and it gets taken away and you want it back, but you can't get it back, so the misery comes from there. So it's this like double-edged sword that's like cyclical. So all the negativity actually comes from not having what we want, or having what we don't want, and not being able to exist with that. So that's the idea. So why do we just do these simple breaths? Well, the only truth is in impermanence, which is in change, which is actually the law of Dhamma, which means it's the law of nature. You know, everything is always changing, fluxing and changing and fluxing and changing. But we want things to stay, to be permanent. And that's where the misery arises. So the idea is to really tune into the truth of this law, the natural law. And this natural law is always happening within our own bodies, within this physical body, because things are always fluxing and moving and changing. So in order to uproot this cyclical, this is called sankharas, this cyclical misery and worry and fear and negativity and all of this that's happening, is to tune in to the flux of our internal world. It's like this body is a microcosm of what's happening in nature. So by observing the sensations as we breathe, that first practice that we did, we're really attuning our mind to feel sensations in our body. And our sense, if we become attuned and focused, we can really feel the subtleties of change happening all the time in our bodies. And that is truth. It's not a philosophy or dogma or anything like that. It's actually what's happening. It's science, right? So to uproot this cyclical thing that we're in with our minds, being busy chasing after things we can't have or clinging on to things that we want to keep, we need to cut and change our blueprint, basically. So the Vipassana practice is actually to, again, we're not forcing, we're not changing the breath. How if the breath is shallow, it's shallow. If it's deep, it's deep. We're not changing our reality to how we want it to be, even the way we breathe. We are observing what's happening just as it is at the physical level. So what the Vipassana technique is to actually start feeling the sensations from your scalp, head, and just move down the entire body, down to the toes, and back up each part, and to actually feel sensation-wise what's happening, and to observe with equanimity, with balance. So, you know, we're sitting for so long, and I mean, it's unbearable at times what you're feeling physically. It's like my feet and my legs were so numb at certain points. It was like I felt like there were vice grips they'd been crushed, and it was just vibrating. But instead of going to like, oh my God, it's hurting so much, this is unbearable, and the head reeling, I want to get out of here, it's like sitting with it, like, okay, there's pain, it's pulsing, there's heat, and observing. And what I noticed was, at some point, there's always going to be a change in the sensation. It might take a long while, or it might not. But this indeed happened, and this is what I witnessed. So it affirms at a cellular level an understanding and acceptance of change. Right? So this is by being able to master this, you're starting to, and I mean, it takes probably lifetimes to master this, but the idea is the more we meditate and the more we do this, we're actually aligning with Dhamma, which is the law of nature. And when you actually start to flow with the law of nature, you begin to flow with feeling at peace and in harmony. There's no resistance with what's happening. Ultimately, there's that change. So when something feels great in the body, like on my 7th day, experienced complete euphoria for 4 hours. It was unbelievable. But I can't cling on to that feeling and want it to stay, because then I'm creating that cyclical, sankara again, and it's like you cannot move towards harmony when you're clinging on to that. So by observing, wow, this feels beautiful and my body feels open, but anicca means there's change, there will be change coming, and I need to be open to that. So that was the practice, that ebbing and flowing, observing reality as it is, and to be in alignment with the law of nature. And the more you begin to line with nature, the more harmony you feel and the more peace you feel. And from there, things start to happen. It's just the law of nature. This is, it's such a big, there's so many layers of this, but this is my understanding, and when I took out of the 10 days that I was there, and I'll have to make another video of like specific experiences, but by the end of it, it was like an hour sit, just went like that, and I didn't want to hear a lot of the things that he was talking about, like the making more misery, and the miseries just multiplying and multiplying and multiplying unless we don't become aware of it, and to start to cut the cycle by doing this work. And now I'm home. It's suggested I do 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening to continue this work. And it's a dedication, but in order to change our whole blueprint, it does take work. And to accept reality truly as it is also takes work. And fear and all this that I experienced, some pretty intense fear, to be able to apply it, and it was difficult, but the technique does work. So that's my report of Vipassana. Also what I took out of it is it's like really like owning your shit. All the blame, pointing fingers, like all of that is only going to create more misery for ourselves, create more sankaras. Nobody else is ever responsible for how we feel. It's all in our control. No, maybe control is not the right word. It's our responsibility to deal with that stuff. So anyways, that's my experience. Check back later.